When Vicarious Visions and Activision remade the first 3 Crash games and dumped them all into one package, my first thought was, oh boy, that's a lot of levels. It's not quite the 100 plus that the back of the box was touting. I guess they must have been including the bosses and the secret entrances to other levels, which they really shouldn't have. Bad Activision. But 86 levels is still an insane amount of levels, most of which are good, but there are a few stinky ones. You're probably thinking of some in your head right now. For this list, the levels are being based on playing them for completion, crystals and gems. The first 2 games' levels weren't designed with time trials in mind, seeing as their originals never had relics, so it would be a bit unfair to judge them based on that. Also, difficulty won't determine whether a level is higher or lower on the list. A challenging level isn't necessarily better or worse. Difficulty can increase or decrease how enjoyable a level is depending on if it's fair or not. The list consists of all of the original levels, plus the 2 bonus levels, Stormy, Ascent and Future Tense. I'm not including that short intro part of the beginning of Crash 2, but besides that, if it's selectable from the world map, then it's in. The number 86 is made up of 28 levels from Crash 1, 27 from Crash 2 and 31 from Crash 3. With all of that out of the way, here comes the worst Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy level to crash the party. The High Road. The most infamous level in the Insane Trilogy. Here's the thing about this level, on the original Crash 1, no complaints. This is a pretty fun and challenging level that just blended in with many others in that game, didn't really stand out. But on the Insane Trilogy it sticks out like a sore thumb. Because of the wonky bounce physics of the turtles, you have to position them perfectly to be able to make it across a gap. If you get hit or accidentally kill one of the turtles, just give up and kill yourself, IRL, because you're not making that jump. Vicarious Visions completely botched this level in the remake, and I'm sure many people gave up on the entire trilogy because they couldn't get past this level, and just wrote the Crash series off as being too hard. Bad level. Bad level. I kinda just added this level that isn't really a level into this list for the sake of completeness, but I'd still take the Great Hall over the High Road any day. The slippery ice physics aren't very fun at all, so when the cold hard Crash level says that I've got to traverse these really annoying slippery sections with multiple obstacles 3 times because there's an exclamation mark crate right at the very end, and outline crates right at the very start, and then a gem right down the hole at the end, then I say, well yeah, of course I will because I want to get all the gems, but I'm not happy about it. I know some people hate the racing levels in Crash 3, but I don't. I do, however, hate Road Crash. Your opponents are just fast enough that you have to have a damn near perfect run to have a chance of getting the crystal. Plus the visuals make it confusing to determine if you're driving over a billboard's shadow or a hole. According to the game, this is the second easiest driving level, but it's not at all, it's the hardest by far. It's another roadblock just like the High Road. I'm sensing a pattern. The Dark Temple type levels in Crash 1 are okay at best, but what really ruins Jaws of Darkness for me is how everything is hidden so badly. Putting a crate above the camera's view, sure, because that's fair. Also, it's so easy to miss getting 3 Cortex tokens because an enemy is placed in such a way that it's too easy to spin them into the crate, blowing it up, and you'll have no idea how you messed up. Native Fortress is okay, but it's the final stretch that bums me out whenever I play it. It's a lot of waiting around for the spike cycles, and those shielded tribesmen have such precise hitboxes that you'll often just get bounced off of them into a hole. Then there's that annoying 3-torch segment at the end. If you don't notice the gap in the wall behind you, which isn't easy, you're gonna have a bad time. Whoa, since when was Crash a collectathon style platformer? Hot Coco is a pretty interesting design where your only requirement to beat the level is to get to the Nitro Switch crate and back. Of course, if you want that gem, you're gonna need to find and smash all of those boxes. The level design is kind of okay, but it doesn't mesh well with the Insane Trilogy's loose jet ski physics. The next batch of levels, starting with the pits, all suffer from the same problem. They all have long alternate paths that, not only are they mandatory to get the gem, but also have the crystals down one specific path. So if you're just trotting through, you might end up missing the crystal for no reason, and have to replay the level. It is indeed the pits. The pits just happens to be the least enjoyable of the batch. In Night Fight you're less likely to avoid the crystal because you may not even have the option to go down the alternate route because it's a death route. When you're going for the gem however, and it's required to walk back up the route, doing that in the dark is not so fun. Digging it is pretty much the same, but at least it's not in the dark, and the level is overall a bit more fun than Night Fight. In Road to Ruin, if you happen to get the death route on your first try, which isn't too hard, you'll miss the crystal because the death route takes you just a tiny bit past it. Why did they do that? At least on this level there are no crates down the death route, so you can just get both gems in 2 separate runs. The Great Gate is the easier native village wall level from Crash 1. The lesser amount of obstacles alleviates some of the frustration, but those wonky tribesmen are still there. It's a decent level, but there's still a lot of waiting around for cycles. Also, some crates in the gem path are a little too hidden for my taste. Behaving is a pretty good level. The challenge of outrunning the bees while avoiding electric gates and spitting plants is a fun time, but unfortunately this level has a pretty huge design flaw that really irks me. Climb up the nitro crate stairs and you get taken to one of the hardest sections in the trilogy, but your reward, the purple gem, is placed right at the beginning of the section, which you retain upon death, making the entire section redundant. What a shame. Tell No Tales isn't a bad level, but the inclusion of alternate paths turns an otherwise linear level into a scavenger hunt with tight corners. Not the best. Making Waves doesn't have that problem. The level is pretty straightforward, but it's still an Insane Trilogy jet ski level with some really floaty physics. Generator Room is a good level, but for some reason it's the only level in the entire trilogy that I have issues with depth perception. I think it's something to do with the way the level presents platforms further back and lower down at the same time as the platforms that you're on, which sort of jumbles them together in my head. This may not be an issue for other people though. Ruination is a solid level overall. I'm not a huge fan of the Donkey Kong segments in 3D, and those rotating pillars can be a bit confusing, but overall not bad. The good Dark Temple type level. Without the strange design issues of Jaws of Darkness, Temple Ruins comes out to be a decent level, but I do find that some platforms on this level are a little harder to jump on than they should be. I think Heavy Machinery does a decent job of signposting its hidden section, and the Embryo bonus stage is quite enjoyable, although that final section of the Embryo stage is kind of tricky because you can't see your character off the top of the screen. Snow Go is much higher than Cold Hard Crash because the slippery 2D sections are a heck of a lot more bearable, plus you don't have to backtrack on them. That being said, the level could have been higher on the list if the ice physics didn't suck. The main problem with them is that your momentum carries on for a little while after you've come to a complete stop, so if you jump afterwards without waiting, you go flying. The jetpack levels in Crash 2 are a cool spectacle and a nice change of gameplay. They're a bit too start-stoppy though, especially Rocket. I feel like these levels would have been more fun if you could break the crates just by ramming into them or something. Pack Attack is a bit better than Rocket because the crates aren't all crammed together, making the level flow a little better. Water levels in video games in general are often pretty bad, but I don't think that that's the case with Under Pressure. Movement is quick enough that it's not a slog, but slow enough that I can feel the pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you no man asked for. Also, gotta love that floaty fish thing, which, fun fact, is called the Submergible. Tell your teachers that, they'll be impressed. Here we have the standard motorcycle level, Hog Ride. Unlike Road Crash, this one is pretty fair with its difficulty. Getting rammed by a car won't end your run, and it's pretty doable to get the crystal and gem at the same time. These China levels are a lot of fun in the original Crash 3. In the Insane Trilogy, Orient Express is still kind of fun, but like with the jet ski, the physics are a bit off. If you don't hit the boxes head on, you'll sometimes just brush alongside them and they won't break. Come on Pure, just break the damn boxes. Midnight Run is the better of the two, with more interesting enemy placement and patterns. The one that started it all, Sanity Beach. What can I say? It's a good opening level that teaches you well about the mechanics of the game and does a good job of letting you know how thorough you'll have to be to earn gems. Orange Asphalt is much more interesting than the previous two motorcycle levels, with the obstacles being mobile. All of the pits are in pretty good positions too, and the enemy AI isn't too hard. This racing level is only trumped by Area 51? The aesthetic for this level is something else, and works really well for a bonus level that you have to earn with relics. The tails for the oncoming cars are quite easy to spot with the UFOs going up to avoid them. The challenge for this racing level is on point. Turtle Woods is quite involved for a first level. 2 bonus areas, several little arena pits, and a coloured gem that is earned in a very unconventional way. As for that last point, I'm not really sure if that's a positive or a negative, but it definitely provides a different sort of challenge for your second playthrough in which you have to go through the level without breaking a single box. You know, these levels really should be lower down on the list, seeing as they're very straightforward and simple. But I don't know, when I see that Bye Bye Blimps is the next level to play, I just get excited for some reason, I'm not sure why. The same can be said about Mad Bombers. This one's a bit more involved, requiring you to shoot the plane's weak points in order to take them down. Sewer Relator is a lot of fun, just like all of the sewer levels from Crash 2. But some of my complaints from before crop up here to less severe degrees. The gem on the yellow path is halfway through, and although that's definitely better than behaving, it's not ideal. The splitting path at the end could also cause you to complete the level without the crystal, but I suppose the Wumpa Fruit Trail makes that a bit less of an issue. If these problems weren't here, Sewer Relator could have been a bit higher on the list. Crash 1, for the most part, had some good opening levels with very balanced difficulty. Jungle Rollers is a smooth, easygoing and fun level that introduces to the player the fact that you're not going to be getting every gem on your first run of every level. As we come to the middle of the list, you'll notice that we're up to some levels that aren't insanely remarkable but are just good levels. Hangin High is one of these. It's not as good as the rest of the Arabian levels, but it's still a good one. The alternate entrance for the yellow gem is pretty fun too. The better of the factory levels from Crash 1, Castle Machinery. It doesn't feel as meaty as Heavy Machinery with its lack of an embryo stage, but it makes up for it with some well executed and challenging platforming on the main path. I love the stream type levels in Crash 2, and while I do still really enjoy plant food, its flow is broken up a bit by the placement of the man-eater plants. It's really hard to plough through them without stopping and taking them out before getting on the jet board. Still a fun level though. The river levels from Crash 1 mix very nicely with the slower paced platforming of the first Crash game. They're very well paced levels that aren't too difficult and don't require you to wait around much. Up the Creek isn't far behind the other one, Upstream, which I prefer marginally because it doesn't require any backtracking for boxes, unlike Up the Creek. Deep Trouble can sometimes feel a little bit unfair with its whirlpool machines squeezed together a bit too tightly, but I still really like the level for the way it handles its special path. Coming towards the end you see the outline of a box and think, I'm gonna need to blow that up. It's not too long before you get to the explanation mark crate at the end, and once you've come back to the special path, you're in for a pretty good time. One thing Sphynxinator does right. Its slippery sections are in 3D. They are much more palatable in this perspective and actually a lot of fun. One thing it does wrong, it has an alternate path that just leads to lives and skips out on boxes. A more challenging and more fun version of Jungle Rollers. I feel like Rolling Stones hides its embryo tokens in clever ways. One is above a bouncy crate that you're probably going to get by accident, and another is hidden by TNT crates which you're likely going to realise on your second run through. Believe it or not, Snowbiz is a fun ice level which, get this, doesn't overuse the slippery ice mechanic. Praise be to Aku Aku. I was originally going to put Piston It Away much lower because of the backtracking with no checkpoints, but when I was watching someone else play this level I discovered something that I never had in my 5+ times of playing through Crash 2. You can spin away the electric orbs. This has brought me much shame and I have no choice but to place Piston It Away at number 43. Because the backtracking in Piston It Away isn't all that bad when you can spin away the orbs, and I feel like I would have grown up to be a much more accomplished human being had I known this. Eggipus Rex is the only level besides the Great Hall that features 0, count them, 0 boxes. Well, I guess you can't actually count them because there aren't any, but I digress. A 2D level where you get to bounce around as Baby T? Yep, it's just as good as it sounds. It's this kind of gameplay change that works tremendously well on a secret level, although it could be a little longer. Okay, I am a little biased towards the medieval theme for reasons I'll disclose in a sec, but at number 41 we have the first Crash 3 level, Toad Village. But come on, it's got those swinging sword guys and frogs that turn into princes when they kiss the orange marsupial. Also, a medieval theme for an opening level is more unique than a jungle or beach theme. Gee Whiz, the better version of Toad Village. And here's why I'm biased. My first experience with Crash Bandicoot was a PS1 demo disc that had Gee Whiz on it. I played through this level so many times before finally picking the game up and I love it so much. Maybe it shouldn't be this high, but it's my video so I can say what I want. For example, Coco is better waifu than Torna, don't at me. And Doubleheader is the better version of Gee Whiz. Cortex Power is an interesting one. Split paths in Crash levels can be hit or miss, but Cortex Power uses it as its core feature, and does it quite well I think, making it like a maze but not one that's too annoying. It's also the only level that has these cool machine gunner enemies. Totally Fly is a much better pitch black level than Night Fight. It's all about getting through as quick as you can to keep the fireflies with you, but you've got to be careful about those spiked saucers. I'm not a fan of those iron crates though. Despite the biplane's less than stellar controls, Rings of Power is a pretty fun level, different from anything else. When you get on a perfect run, it's pretty exhilarating. The lab is a difficult level in terms of platforming challenges and enemy placement, a great fit for a final level, although some of the cycles on those timed floors can be a little irritating. You're probably surprised to see a jet ski level up this high. Well, that's because the loose physics don't really affect how good this level plays. It's a very linear set of challenges that works perfectly for the jet ski, but nothing's too hard where the physics become a problem. Some of those jumps can get pretty crazy in a good way. You want to talk about iconic Crash levels, how about Boulders, the level that they recreated in Uncharted 4 for an Easter egg. These levels where you run towards the camera are really great, but Boulders is the worst of them, simply because it has the least going on. Boulder Dash is the better level because it's just a bit more interesting with more platforms. Then we move on to the Crash 2 ones. Crash Dash is better because it has more obstacles like electric fences, and Crash Crush is essentially the better version of Crash Dash. The Lost City and its sister stage have some of the best BS-free platforming in all of Crash 1. With the Lost City, it's all about how well you can run and jump, with a couple puzzles for the embryo tokens. Tomb Time is a great Egyptian level with none of the nonsense of Sphynxinator. A solid normal route plus a solid purple gem route equals a solid level. The The Eel Deal is a good sewer level, but what I find really interesting is how it signposts the hidden green gem. It's hidden in this out of place room full of nitro crates. There's definitely something fishy about this room. Jump past the crates at the end and bam, green gem. Discovering this made me feel hella Boulder. The better of the two space levels from Crash 2. Spaced Out can be pretty difficult, but it's the final level, it should be. I really like the extra section of the stage you get from finding all of the coloured gems. So, the high road sucks, but Road to Nowhere definitely doesn't. Most of the challenge comes from the precise jumps onto the platforms or jumping over the hogs, not bouncing on some stupid turtles. The turtles do rear their ugly heads briefly at the end however, and that's why this level isn't placed higher. Like Totally Fly, Bug Light has you running as fast as you can through the level trying to preserve the light. Bug Light also has some really cool segments like where it gives you all 3 Aku Akus at once to cause chaos. It has a great puzzly bonus stage too. It's a really fun level overall, but it could be a bit harder for a final stage. Boneyard is one of the best earlier levels from Crash 3. Running away from a Triceratops is way cooler than running away from a boulder. The lava pits and grass also make for some interesting obstacles. Sunset Vista is a marathon of a level that has a Torna and Cortex bonus stage. Like the Lost City, the challenge of this level is completely fair and just tests your platforming skills. The patterns of the moving blocks may seem unfair at first, but it's easy to get used to. Getting the gem and key on this level is immensely satisfying. The pitch black levels from Crash 1 are the best pitch black levels. There's a rhythm to them. The timing that Lights Out's platforms and constructions move at is almost perfect to your movement that you can pretty much run through the level non-stop and make it. It feels really good to do. I don't know why they made it that the path to the gem cuts the level short though. Not only does Un-Bearable have a chase sequence with a giant polar bear, but you also get to ride Polar at some point. The stage has 2 secrets in it. One of them is a secret exit that you get from running back to Polar. I think this is well signposted because there's a structure leading back towards the pit. The other secret you get from jumping into the hole that the giant polar bear falls down. I don't know how you're supposed to know that. The time trial in Hang 8 is a lot of fun early on in Crash 2. No, not the relic, this level has the time trial that gets you the gem. I wish more levels did this. It's better in this level than Plant Food because it doesn't have the annoying man-eater plants. Hanging Out has a bunch of great hanging challenges, as the name implies, with a bunch of enemies that you can slip past if you're crafty enough. It also has a secret exit which is very easy to spot. I like this level a lot and it would be higher, but there are some stupid spiked saucers which seem to be unfairly difficult to jump over. High Time is a really great Arabian level that does a good job of teaching you how to use your newly earned double jump ability. It has a great death route too. Flaming Passion is basically the better version of High Time. This is the best level that features a chase sequence. Lava pits, jet streams, grass, pterodactyls, Dynamite has it all. But I just wish there was a chase sequence where you get to ride on Baby T. Also, that secret exit where the dinosaur names you is a bit questionable. They could have had something that at least pointed to that being the case. Still, it's a great level nonetheless. Some of you may be questioning how I could put Stormy Ascent so high, seeing how it's excruciatingly difficult. It was removed from the original game after all for being too hard. But as a bonus level, I think the difficulty is just right. And even though it is hard, most of the level is pretty fair. You're not dying because of broken mechanics, you're dying because you're messing up on the challenging platforming segments. Perfecting Stormy Ascent is a Zen-like experience, although I have to admit it's definitely not perfect. Toxic Waste is another level that has just the right amount of challenge. The difficulty of the barrels ramps up towards the end where it can get a little tricky to avoid the bouncing ones, but it won't take long before you figure out the pattern. Going for the perfect run on this one for the colour gem is pretty enjoyable and mostly pain-free. Future Frenzy has backtracking done right. After coming through the secret entrance you have to do about half of the level in reverse, which is usually annoying because of how close the enemies are to the camera, but it doesn't feel like that in this one. Just take your time and you'll be good. In general, the space levels in Crash 3 are just excellent. Whoa! The Warthog levels in Crash 1 are just like rhythm games. All of the enemy placements are easy to predict ahead of time and it feels so good to have a perfect run. Hog Wild is the easier of the two, and Whole Hog is the harder one, but only by a little bit, making it more enjoyable to get through. The only brand new level that Vicarious Visions created for the Sane Trilogy. And you know what? Future Tense is a great friggin' level. It doesn't feel like anything that's ever been in Crash before, and for an extra level that stands separate from the base game, that's okay. For a Crash level, it's very non-linear. The challenge doesn't only come from getting past the tricky obstacle placements and making the difficult jumps, but also from finding all of the hidden secrets. I hope this isn't the last we see of Vicarious Visions Crash Bandicoot. Tomb Raider is an excellent Egyptian level from Crash 3 and one of the best levels from that game, period. Not only does it have an awesome death route and bonus stage, but also the main path is a doozy. You don't really have to wait around for the water to descend because you can risk it and use your double jump death tornado combo to fly over the gaps instead. Bear It is the worst of the polar bear levels, and it's this high up on the list. Unlike the poorer stages in the Insane Trilogy, the controls for Polar feel just like what I remember from the original Crash 2. With the Warthog levels, there's only really one way to do it. But because you can adjust Polar's speed, enemy placements might not line up very well because you've gotten somewhere too early, but it's very easy to adjust for this. Bear Down improves on Bear It with the inclusion of Parker Lab assistance and, get this, more interesting slippery sections. The slippery ice actually improves the polar bear levels. It's a Christmas miracle. Everything good that I said about Lights Out rings true for Fumbling in the Dark. Its greater length, the inclusion of the spiders that you have to bounce on, and its lack of a shortcut makes it all the better. Like many of the best Crash levels, a perfect run of this level feels so satisfying. And like many of the best Crash levels, a perfect run of Totally Bear feels so satisfying. Totally Bear turns the lights down, cranks up the amount of obstacles, and has a lot more instances where a sprint jump is required. I'd play a Crash game that was just full of polar bear levels, they're that fun. The castle exterior level that we actually got. Slippery Climb is nowhere near as difficult as Stormy Ascent, but that's not to say that it isn't hard. The balance is perfect and there isn't really much memorization of patterns or cycles that you have to do. You just have to take a deep breath and make it through the level in one life to get the red gem. Not too bad, right? The rotations of the platforms and the bird placement really mesh well with the physics of the original Crash game. Gone Tomorrow probably should have been the final level of Crash 3 instead of Bug Life. The space levels of Crash 3 really are some of the best in the trilogy, and Gone Tomorrow is no exception. What I love about it though is how it makes great use of the bazooka, and uses the outline crates to test the player. There's an outline crate right near the beginning that you seemingly cannot get to manifest. Continue to the green gem path though and you'll eventually hit an exclamation mark crate, and then you'll be brought right back to the crate, no backtracking. Hopefully you didn't break the vital TNT earlier though. So, number 1 might seem a little unremarkable, and I suppose it kind of is. It's not a flashy level like Future Tense, or a challenging level like Slippery Climb, but when you add up all of what's good about the level, for me it comes out on top. Number 1 is Air Crash from Crash Bandicoot 2. There's a lot going on in this level, but it doesn't feel bloated or overstay its welcome. You've got a fun secret entrance path and a secret exit, and it may be the most satisfying secret exit to find in the trilogy. There's definitely something fishy going on with those boxes. You can't fault the gameplay of the jetboard, and this level is packed with these sections. Plus it has a decent bonus stage and a great death route. The only thing that's missing is the time trials from Hang 8 and Plant Food, but even without those, there's still enough awesomeness here to make it my favourite level from the Insane Trilogy.